welcome back to Conversations with Chrissy. Today we're highlighting Vehicle Safety Recall Week, and you may not think of the MBA as the first thing you think about as you think about the safety of your vehicle when it comes to recalls, but it's part of our commitment to help keep Maryland roads safe and to reach zero fatalities on our roadways. From the moment you get your learner's permit and your driver's license to continuing to educate drivers throughout the time that you're driving, it's about responsible driving behaviors. So it's really important for each of you to think about periodically checking your vehicle, making sure there's not any open recalls currently on your vehicle. It really is about the safety of you as well as anybody else that you might be transporting in that vehicle. And today we're going to talk to Steve Ridella, the director of the Office of Defects Investigations at the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Stephen. Really excited to talk about vehicle safety recalls. If you tell us a little bit about Vehicle Safety Recall Week and what's behind it.
I'm glad to, Chrissy. Glad to be here. Vehicle Safety Recall Week has been going on for several years at NHTSA. Recalls are very important to us in terms of my office. My office handles all the recalls that occur every year. And there's a lot of recalls every year. In fact, in 2022, there were almost 1,100 vehicle and equipment recalls affecting nearly 32 million vehicles and components. So chances are a recall is happening for you or somebody you know. And so by doing Vehicle Safety Recalls Week right around daylight savings time changes, people are doing clocks forward. They're doing changing batteries on their smoke alarms. They're doing spring cleaning. Safety is important. And so your vehicle safety is important as well as your home safety. So by checking for recalls, because they're so prevalent, chances are you might have one. And so by doing that check at this time of year on a regular basis, you're up to date on your vehicle recalls. And if you find one, you can go get it fixed immediately at your car dealership, and they have to fix it for free.
That's a great way to remember it. With the time changing, you can remember to also check for the vehicle safety recall. So it's a great way to jog all of our memory. I know everybody's busy, so that's a helpful reminder. Can you tell us a little bit about what prompts that vehicle safety recall?
Absolutely. So manufacturers, as well as my office, do a lot of analysis of data that they have. And that could be consumer complaints. My office gets thousands of consumer complaints every year regarding recalls, regarding anything on vehicle safety. If they allege that there's a defect in their car, we investigate sometimes. The car companies do their own internal investigations. And if either we or the companies find that there is a defect that poses an unreasonable risk to safety, that's the benchmark. That's rather broad. They're required to file a recall with us within 5 days of that determination of a defect. And once we get that notice, we post it publicly. They have to notify owners that are registered to that vehicle that's affected by that recall within 60 days, and then provide that recall for free. We like to say recalls last forever. They have an obligation for 15 years, but they'll fix them for a lot longer than that.
Well, it's great to hear how quickly the process happens. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about, there's so much technology on a vehicle these days. What are the most common issues you see in terms of recalls that are coming to your attention?
No, recalls affect every aspect of vehicles. We've seen them from electrical systems to brakes and to transmission, engine issues. And vehicles are getting more complex. There's no doubt about it. And that could be one of the reasons why we've seen an increase in recalls over the years. Very complex machines that we're making now with lots of electronics, lots of things that could possibly go wrong. And they're making millions of units every year. So there's not one component that stands out. Recalls affect all components. And so we see that there is, like I said, that unreasonable risk to safety. Either we see it in our investigations or the car companies see it, they will do that recall and offer that free remedy.
I know in Maryland, when we've done our vehicle safety recall program, we've really seen it is those critical safety components that tend to be the ones that get our attention, certainly airbags and things that have life-saving capability. We want to make sure we get taken care of as quickly as possible. There's certainly all recalls are very important.
Absolutely.
Can you walk through that process, how somebody checks for a recall?
I'm sorry?
How somebody checks for their recall.
Checking for recall is really important. First of all, if you do have a recall, the manufacturer needs to send you at least one first-class letter describing the recall, the risk of the recall, or I should say the risk of the defect, and then what the remedy is and when you can get it fixed. So they can check that way. Obviously, they can take that letter to the dealership and say, hey, I've got a recall. But we also offer a lot of other ways to do that. At NHTSA, we have our website, which is nhtsa.gov/recalls. You can put in your vehicle identification number, which is found in the lower left part of the windshield or in the driver's side door jamb. You put that into the recalls website that we have, and you'll get an immediate ping of whether or not you have an open safety recall. We also have a hotline, 888-327-4236, and that is available almost every day, weekdays. Operators are standing by who can take your VIN, enter it, and then tell you whether or not you have a recall and perhaps even where to get it fixed. And finally, we developed an app called Safer Car. And Safer Car is really cool because you can enter your VIN, you can enter your family's VINs of your vehicles, you can enter child seats, tires, and then get notifications if recalls are issued on that vehicle or equipment. It's kind of like having, somebody in your pocket looking out for you at all times. So I think it's really cool. And we've seen thousands of downloads of the app.
It is a great tool. I've used it myself. Definitely recommend that to folks who are listening. With all those tools out there, I assume you'd have some recommendations for individuals who are looking to purchase that used vehicle, that they go and check to see what the vehicle history is and if there's any recalls.
Right. Vehicles are being kept longer than ever. I think the average age of a vehicle is somewhat approaching 13 years now, and vehicles change hands. We've seen in some recalls where a vehicle has changed hands 4 or 5 times. The manufacturer may not be keeping up with that registration where that vehicle is. And so if you are in the market for a used vehicle, absolutely, you get the VIN number from the owner you're purchasing from, find out if it has an open recall. If you do purchase that vehicle, I would say the first thing you do is take it to the dealership and get it fixed.
Yeah, it's a big purchase. Certainly, if you own a home, maybe it's the second largest purchase you're making, but always good to do your due diligence before you do it.
Absolutely.
We're really proud of the program that Maryland started in 2018 to provide vehicle recall information as part of customers' registration renewals, as another good reminder. You talked about this time of year is great time to check, but that vehicle registration renewal comes around regularly, and using that to really provide our customers with that information right at their fingertips. I wonder if you think other states would benefit from similar programs. I know some have already adopted similar things as well.
Wow, the Maryland DMV project was such a great success. Really appreciate your team effort to get that done. We saw such great results. We did offer this solicitation to other states, and we now have California, Ohio, and Texas on board. We are going to be offering it again as required under the bipartisan infrastructure law. But we're also seeing manufacturers are partnering up with DMVs across the country to send letters to customers in their states who have vehicles and say, hey, we found an open recall on your car during a registration process like you did, and say, maybe you want to get it fixed. We've seen success in that as well. So we're really glad to see states adopting what started as a pilot project in Maryland has really come really successful, and we're hoping to many other states adopt it.
It's great to see all those developments, and many ways to do it, as you said, but it's great to see that information getting to the customer, which is the number one important thing. Certainly, we think it's part of our safety mission, and we're really proud of our effort and appreciate the funding to help make that happen.
Glad to.
You mentioned several times that it's free to get those recalls taken care of, and I think that's important. So it's not a barrier for somebody taking advantage of it.
Right.
What are the steps that somebody should do when they find out they have that recall? If you just walk through that for us.
Sure. So if you get that letter in the mail, obviously it tells immediately how to contact a dealer, whether the remedy is available. You may have to wait sometimes, not often though. Most times manufacturers have remedies ready to go. And then make that appointment. And it's free. I keep having to say it over and over again. It's free. Take it in. We know there can be inconveniences. Dealers are providing a lot more these days. They're providing rentals, loaners. They're providing ride shares to your work or back home if you need to leave it for a while. So it's becoming more convenient. Some are even offering repairs in your driveway. We know that for the Takata airbag recall, which, as you know, is the largest recall we've ever had in the agency. There's still millions of those units that are not repaired. And so manufacturers are happy to come to your house and get it done because it's so serious a recall when that inflator and that airbag could, rupture in front of you and possibly cause serious injury or death.
Very serious, and definitely with those airbag recalls, I know there's a lot of work that's been done at the national level and the state level to try to
Right.
get information out. It's always good to put reminders out there about that Takata airbag issue.
Absolutely.
So are there other things? You mentioned all the equipment on vehicles these days. Are there other things? You mentioned child safety seats that we should be on the lookout for recalls as well in terms of those things that are in our vehicle.
Right. So anything that is in a vehicle is subject to a recall because it's part of a vehicle, like a child seat or tires. But also things like motorcycles and trailers. They fall under the Safety Act, so there are recalls on those as well. So all those have identification numbers in them, and so they're tracked. So I would say that if you have a motorcycle or like a trailer, please, it's definitely watch for those recalls. The manufacturers have an obligation to inform you, and then we can also help in that respect as well through our website, through the hotline, like I mentioned, or the app.
No, that's great. We traditionally think of the passenger vehicle, so it's a good
Right.
reminder.
Right.
Trailers can be certainly dangerous if there's an issue and you lose part of your load. It could impact another driver on the roadway, and certainly our motorcyclists we consider vulnerable.
Right. We urge people to send those child's car seat registrations in, because that's the way that the manufacturer knows where you are and can inform you if there is a recall.
Great reminder, because we want to make sure our youngest are getting safely where they need to go. So great reminder. We always talk about having the right child safety seat, but want to make sure there's no recall there.
Absolutely.
Other things related to recalls that you think it's important for the general public to be aware of?
Just so that people know that their vehicles, there's people out there looking out for them, like we are and you are, to keep them safe, but that it's a shared responsibility is what I like to say, is that you've got a car. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, but when they do go wrong, that you have the ability to get it fixed. The manufacturers have the obligation to inform you if there's a defect, but also to keep your vehicle maintained and in best running condition it can be, so that if there is a potential defect, your car can still be considered safe, but also that you can take that vehicle, if it has a defect and under recall, to take it in and get it fixed. So I think, like I say, I like to say shared responsibility, but we're all in this for safety. Our goal in the agency, is yours as well, is to keep the roads safe for people. We want to drive down that injury fatality rate that kind of went up during the pandemic, and make the roads safer for everyone.
And definitely, we've seen our consumer rights groups and our manufacturers, as well as our dealerships, all come together with us in terms of the program that we did on vehicle safety recall. So it's great to see that partnership. Everybody has the same mission, as you said. And
Right.
I think that's a great place to end it, really, in terms of zero fatalities is our goal in Maryland. It's our national goal, as identified by Secretary of Transportation. And so we're all working together to make sure that we arrive home safely. And one way that we can do that is make sure we check those recalls before we get behind the wheel.
Totally agree. It's great to talk to you, Chrissy.
It was truly my pleasure to have Steve with us here today. Learn some great information about how to take care of an open recall if you have it, why it's so important, and our commitment to safety. I also want to highlight how MBA is taking those steps as well to make it as easy as possible. We know everybody's busy, and so we want to make sure that we provide the information to you in a very convenient way. We briefly talked about our program, which notifies customers at time of registration renewal, so that's every 2 years. You're probably used to getting either that email or that envelope in the mail that has information about renewing your registration. I'd ask you to look closely at that and make sure there are no open recalls on your vehicle. If there are recalls, you'll have information about the steps that you can take in terms of getting that addressed. And we'd ask you to do that as soon as you possibly can. It really is a priority, not only for your own safety, as well as the safety of everybody else on our roadways. We know that's a shared commitment of everybody to reach zero fatalities. Let's make sure everybody gets home safely, and together we can make that happen. Really appreciate everybody joining us for Conversations with Chrissy. Looking forward to our next time and continuing the conversation. Take care.